can talk about tonight.
Sure. Yeah.
And I'm preparing to live stream the meeting, setting up my meeting, and we're seeing what happens. And I believe we are live.
We're live. Excellent.
Yep.
Hello. Hello, everybody. My name is Jeff Olmsted, and I am a librarian here at the Chaska branch of the Carver County Library. And I am super excited to bring this evening's program to y'all. Thanks for coming. I'm just so excited. We have Chris Riemenschneider here. He has been writing for the Star Tribune for, I think this year makes 20 years of his having worked.
Yeah, amazing.
And just one of my favorite voices to read when it comes to breaking down local music. My brother and I have been playing a game for years to see who can spot Chris R first at a show. He got the Unvolt show, I think, at the Minnesota Zoo. He spotted you, and I got you at Jason Isbell at the Palace. But we're excited to have Mr. Riemenschneider here to talk about his wonderful book about First Avenue and artist that's near and dear to folks in Carver County's hearts, Prince. I think he will come up tonight as well. Just want to get a few quick housekeeping introduction things out of the way, and then we will turn the floor over to Chris. First off, I just want to say this program is funded in part or wholly by the Legacy Amendment with money from Minnesota's Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund. One of my favorite aspects of being a Minnesotan outside of First Avenue would be the fact that this amendment passed in 2008 and the incredible coalition of people that came together to make it happen. And as a librarian, it's been such a boon for us to get great programming here like we're going to have for you this evening. So thank you, Legacy Amendment. And just wanted to give a quick thank you to some of my colleagues. Susan Bernstein, who's kind of manning the controls here tonight and probably has the most cool stories about seeing shows at First Avenue of anybody I know in the metro area. So looking forward to talking with her about this after tonight. Jessica Roshan, incredible asset to our team. She's really handled the Legacy Amendment side of things and does a great job of helping us all get that programming out and ready for folks. And then my other teammate, Maren Wilbur, who's just been a real saint when it comes to working for authors and doing a lot of the logistics stuff. So thank you to all you folks. Quick shout out for some upcoming programming. We have some great music coming on May 19th. Artist Galen Lee. It's just quite a get. We'll be having her on May 19th at 6:30. I highly recommend folks tune in. Incredible musician, incredible story. Looking forward to sharing that with all of you. And then
she's hilarious too. She's
nice.
Such a treat to talk to, but yeah, just beautiful music. Anyway, go on.
And then on May 20th, we have author Katie Stifter out, and she's a local author, and she's just written an incredible book, The Funny Thing About Grief, and it's just going to be a good night talking about humor and resilience in equal measures. So please tune into that. And now, again, I would just like to get back to the main event. We have Chris here, and I'm just so excited to hear what he has to say about this institution that's had so many lives, that he just did I just can't recommend this book enough because he managed to piece together a really coherent narrative of a place that's just had so many up and downs and faces over the years. So I really look forward to hearing what he has to say about that process and all the artists that have played there over the years. So without further ado, welcome, Chris.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. I don't really have much of a spiel here. So folks watching at home, shoot questions to us, and that usually gets me going pretty well. I mean, you talk about the ups and downs of this club over now 51 years. When I finished it, it was coming up. It was 48 years when I finished it. But I mean, just the past, obviously the past year has been total chaos. I mean, there's a new ending to the book, which hopefully like the current ending is going to be a happy one, and I'm pretty confident it will be a happy one. But they've had to overcome and are going to have to overcome a lot this year, coming out of this pandemic. So that's it's just that's just a kind of a super extreme example of everything it's been through over 48 years. I mean, just mass chaos at that place for most of those, 30 of those 48 years anyways, and many times that the lights weren't, it was hard to keep the lights on, and in fact the initial run of the Depot ended in the summer of '71, and it actually did sit dark for a year till it was reborn as Uncle Sam's, which that whole era. Obviously, that I'm old, but that was way before my time even. So that was the bulk of my research was looking at the '70s era, the different '70s eras, and that's what I mean. That took me. I researched the book it took me a little over 2 years to research and write the book. I mean, obviously, being at the Star Tribune for at that point 15 years, obviously I'd been researching and reporting on the place all along. So I already had a lot of the work done, but even still, I found myself going back, fact checking myself, stuff that I had written before. But there's so much, there was just so much to cover that whittling it down became, after I'd done so much research, just whittling it down and, creating the story to flow through it, which the story really is the story of survival of how that place just, I've survived, closing in '71, survived the end. The disco era kept the Uncle Sam's disco music kept it alive, and it was a popular dance spot in the '70s. And it survived the end of that to be reborn as this kind of, experimental punk rock / R&B / reggae and hip hop in the early '80s. I mean, really cutting edge stuff at the time. And of course, out of that in the early '80s is when Prince, Carver County's own Prince, came and, talking about keeping the lights on. I say in the book, if Prince hadn't come along, it's very likely the place wouldn't have survived. And of course, and that's because, obviously once Purple Rain came out, the place became a worldwide phenomenon in 1984. Some of the old, the gripey old punk rock people from then act like, it sold out then, when Purple Rain came and everything. But I mean, please, but for a while there, it was a tourist destination and everything. But out of that, they actually made money in those years, and that kept them alive through some lean years that would follow. We were supposed to do this we were going to do this discussion in person last year, timed to the Prince celebration at Paisley Park, and obviously that didn't happen, which is too bad because that would have been great. But when you're talking First Avenue, you're talking Prince. I mean, it's one, they're tied at the hip forever. And, obviously I knew that. And obviously I was going to spotlight that in the book and write about Prince no matter what. I actually, going into writing the book, and this sounds stupid now, but I was actually going to try to kind of downplay Prince's role in the club and the club's role in Prince's world. And that's partly because he only played there, 9 real concerts he played there, and then there were a few assorted little things where he jumped on stage. That's not a lot. I mean, Replacements and Husker Du probably played there 50 times between the Mainroom and the Entry. The Suburbs and Soul Asylum bands that are still around, they've probably played there, I don't know. That's a good question. Actually, I think we've actually figured the Jayhawks might actually be the longest, played there the most. And of course, Curtis A, who played there, he played there even in the Depot era. And of course, he plays there every year for the John Lennon trivia. But anyways, back to Prince. I was stupidly thinking I'd downplay him. And that quickly fell by the wayside as I came to understand, because I was too young to get into any of the Prince shows. You know, he stopped playing there in 1987. His last show there until his last show there was in 2007. But before that, there was a gap of 20 years. He played, or 30 years, 20 years. He played there for the warm-up for the Sign of the Times tour. And of course, the reason he stopped playing there is 87 is when he was building that place out there in Carver County, Paisley Park, which, you know, why would he all his equipment, all his gear, all his musicians were out there at Paisley Park instead of having to haul all their stuff downtown and unload and everything. Not that Prince was doing any of that work, but you know, why not have the club come to them, in other words. So yeah, he stopped playing there in 87. But as I came to learn, up to that point, the shows he played there were really, besides just being awesome, were really pretty important, pivotal turning points. And that's obviously the first one, you know, which is really when it was starting to break big everywhere, was March 9th, 1981, the Dirty Mind era. And he, you know, it was like he had played the Capri, famously played the Capri early on in the Orpheum. But this was, a lot of people felt like this is when he was really accepted as a hometown hero. You know, for better or worse, he obviously should have been accepted as a hometown hero before that. But that's when things really clicked in 81. And that was right when he was playing SNL, Saturday Night Live, and so it was a big gig for him. It was kind of a warm up to superstardom. The next time he played there was when he was about to open for the Rolling Stones in Anaheim, or in somewhere out there in LA, wherever that Coliseum is. And that's when he was famously booed off the stage. So there's kind of details about how that was intertwined with the show they did at First Avenue. And then from then on out, he would play there for a lot of times for tour warm-ups. He played his birthday party, which was obviously June 7th of 84, which was right before Purple Rain came out. And that's actually of the bootlegs, that's actually my favorite is the birthday party in 1984, because he played a lot of the B-sides from Purple Rain and a lot of the tracks that he wouldn't otherwise play live. But he was just basically blowing off steam before his world exploded, and which it obviously did when Purple Rain came out. And of course, to the backtrack, of course, then obviously the most pivotal show was in August 1983, which is when he debuted all the Purple Rain, not all of it, but I think five or six of the songs that wound up on Purple Rain. He debuted August of 83, Super Hot Night. Just people crammed to the gills. It was a benefit for Minnesota Dance Theater, which is where he and the Revolution basically took it over, the Minnesota Dance Theater's space, to rehearse all the dance routines and everything for the movie, which nobody knew there was except Prince. I don't even know if, I guess a band I think did know about the movie by that point. But you know, they with the movie on the set to film that fall, they recorded and debuted all this material, and then the recordings of 3 of those songs, including Purple Rain. What you hear on the record is what was played at First Avenue that night, which a lot of people don't know. You don't know it's a live track. The audience was stripped out. There's one towards the end, you can hear a woo if you listen very, very closely. So yeah, so as I went along, I knew this book, it could have been an entire book about Prince and First Avenue. And of course, then as I'm halfway through the writing of it is when he died. So that was a huge, I mean, obviously that was a huge period, but that was a huge upheaval for me and the book, because I'm working for the Star Tribune. So I suddenly have really probably the biggest story on my beat in my career, and became, so much work and important work. I'm not complaining. It was, an honor to get to write all that stuff afterwards. But, for 4 or 5 months, we were just on Prince stories constantly, and rightfully so. But then I also had this book to finish, and obviously that just became a huge central part of the book, because as we all remember here, I mean, you turned on CNN after his death, and what did you see? You saw images of those 10,000 people outside singing Purple Rain outside First Avenue, and the scene at First Avenue. And TV cameras were out there at Paisley Park too, but they couldn't get into Paisley Park, and it's just kind of this, it's kind of weird looking, but otherwise kind of plain looking white building out there. So once again, it just reiterated how much First Avenue and Prince are tied at the hip. And unfortunately it was when he died, but just a defining moment in the club and in Prince history in Minnesota history in general. That was just I think a huge moment.
So moving just to see. I remember that weekend so vividly. I was at the Bob Mould show. I think the Saturday night played When You Were Mine, and to hear him kind of speak that fondly of that era, and just to see the number of people that were just gathered there to celebrate his life, I just thought that was a really powerful moment. I can't imagine trying to cover it under the auspices of the Strib.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, what imagine for journalists, and for the cameras, it was a beautiful moment. So it was great in that sense. And it, I mean, I have a line in the book. I think it's in the intro of the book. Paisley Park is where he lived and where he died. And obviously Paisley Park is such an important location for Prince lore, for Prince fans. But First Avenue is really where he kind of came to life, where he his musical legacy in Minnesota, I think was set in stone there. And I think just it was his playground for that pivotal incubatory period of his career in the early 80s. And he hung out there a lot too. There's so many, you come across so many there. A friend of mine was just reading the Bananarama biography. Can't say that's one I picked up. The biography, or I don't even know if it's a biography or autobiography, but they have a story about hanging out with Prince at First Avenue when they came to town. Which Prince, 3 women in a band that were cute. Prince showed up. I guess that's not all that surprising, but it was. You hear so many random stories, and I'm still hearing them. A few years after finishing this book, I'm hearing Prince stories that could have went in there. One of my favorite ones, and I was going to save this, but I just heard this story, I'm not going to say who said it, because I don't know if he'd want me to say it, but there's and this is kind of an ongoing thread in the book, the fact that there weren't any restrooms in the dressing room there up until, I forget when they put it in, I think the late 80s. So you had, actually at the opening of the book, the section where the night Joe Cocker played, I have this guy, guy who was a kid then, he's there to see Joe Cocker in concert, and Joe Cocker pulls up right next to him at the urinal before the show. I mean, that's how it was. You know, people had to go use the bathroom. But the Prince story, I mean, of course, Prince wouldn't do that. And there was a private bathroom. There is a private bathroom. It's now the accessible bathroom on the main floor, kind of under the stairs going up there. They would haul Prince out. They would put him inside the roadie case, the big metallic looking cases. They would put him inside there and roll him out to the private bathroom, and he would use it. And yeah, I thought that was priceless. And I, obviously I would have included that in the book if I'd heard that before. So it's a story still unfolding, in other words. And yeah, so many great memories and stories coming out still.
We've got a question, and I think it may even be from a colleague of yours at the Star Tribune, Mr. N. Justin.
Oh yeah, Neil. Hey, Neil.
Aside from Prince shows, what are the top 3 shows that you've seen at First Avenue?
Oh gosh. Neil, you could ask me that at work to prep me for that. But, I always, obviously, and I did see the one Prince show which was the 7/7/07, July 7th, 2007 show, which is the one which didn't start until 2:45 in the morning and didn't last more than, it lasted under an hour. That was huge, of course. Finally seeing Prince at First Avenue, his return there was huge. I wouldn't say, I saw much better Prince shows than that. He was just kind of starting to get going, he and the band, when the police pulled the plug in the show. He played Target Center across the street and raised how many thousands of dollars for the city coffers and tax money, and then they shut down the show across the street. Anyway, at First Avenue, so many of us are still bitter about that. But that's a legendary show. I don't know if that'd be one of my favorites. I always go back to two local acts that I think just blew that place out. I saw Soul Asylum when I was a teenager. On their it was the Hang Time era, which is I think my favorite Soul Asylum record now. And people forget Soul Asylum back then. Soul Asylum is still a really great live band, but back then they were really an amazing, because they played so much, they toured so much. They were such a great live band. So that's one of my favorites. And then flash forward years later, the Doomtree Blowouts, which were annual shows that would grow bigger every year. I think the last one they ended with like doing 4 or 5 shows in the entry and then 3 sold out shows in the main room. Those main room shows, the Doomtree Blowouts, were just so, just they owned the place. It was just so electrifying. The kids dancing. I wasn't there for the Prince heyday, and not that I'm saying Doomtree is great as Prince, but I think just the vibe, the community aspect to it, the people just loving these hometown heroes, those are really magic moments. And of course, seeing some of the other big names there, the D'Angelo shows were really a treat there. Lauryn Hill, Motorhead. I saw Motorhead there twice, and besides losing half of my hearing from those shows, those were always. Those shows were always packed, and the reason why is, and I'm one of them, the big burly guys in the crowd, not big, but and so it was just packed to the gills at those shows, but that added to the discomfort of the wonderful discomfort of those shows. So there you go, Neil. I think that answers that question.
I love the recollections of Lemmy in the book, just kind of hanging at the clubs. It wasn't worth it for him to, just playing pinball with a glass of whiskey. That's an image I want to keep in my head of him going.
Yeah, he was hardcore. I guess he would, if I recall, he would at the Rainbow in LA. He played pinball there. Was always there playing pinball too. He was a pinball fiend, I guess. My favorite story is Lemmy was walked, went out for a smoke or something, and then got locked out of the club and couldn't get back in. And he wasn't trying to, but he accidentally kicked in the front door, which just tells you, he's just, you just picture Lemmy in his leather jacket and leather boots, accidentally kicking in the front door, kicking the window. I guess he was very apologetic about it. But he did get back in then too.
Great. When I think of First Avenue, and especially after reading the book, so many names come up, but I would love it if you could just talk a little bit about Steve Mcclellan. Yeah. Such a pivotal figure in the history of the club, especially when you were talking about some of that music in the 1980s, but I would love if you could just fill folks in about his role a little bit.
Yeah, no, Steve's kind of the central character of the book. Steve was the behind the scenes. Well, he wasn't all that behind the scenes. Sometimes people couldn't get him to shut up. Said lovingly, Steve. He started one of the few people that carried over from the Uncle Sam's era into the First Avenue era. He started as a manager or as a bartender, and then became a manager during the disco era. At the end of the disco era, it really probably could have closed if it hadn't been for Steve, the club. He went to Alan Fingerhut, the owner, and gave him the spiel about, I think we can do this, I think we can do that, and basically turning it into what became First Avenue from a disco club. I mean, which it's kind of what it started out as as the Depot, so it wasn't completely unheard of, but it really took some convincing on Steve's part, which he did. What took even more convincing on Steve's part was for Alan to keep doing it, because the place didn't make money for quite a while, up until the Purple Rain thing. And so Alan kept it going as Steve booked these, sometimes, Steve would book Los Lobos in the entry and Lucinda Williams in the end, these groups that I consider just total giants. Run DMC, he booked Run DMC in the Mainroom, and they only got like 300 people. And I mean, that's a hugely legendary show. And there's so many like that, and really out there stuff too. I mean, Sun Ra and a lot of some more jazz and world beat stuff, a lot of reggae. Really, really amazing stuff. So
back on those calendars.
Yeah, and then Steve, kept it going, and as the 90s set in, all these bands that or late 80s, I should say, all these bands that had, Steve it was Steve and another guy's idea to open the 7th Street entry, and that the bands that played the entry in the mid 80s became the bands that headlined First Avenue in the late 80s, or mid 80s. From Husker Du and Replacements to all those touring bands, Red Hot Chili Peppers, who you said you get to see there back then. I mean, yeah, they started out playing in the entry. And that's actually kind of how the stars outside the building came about. I guess if I recall, you'd have to read it in the book exactly, but I think it was Jack Myers who was Steve McClellan's longtime partners. Jack was kind of more the business manager, but the Red Hot Chili Peppers were playing across the street at Target Center, and I think right after Target Center was built, and everybody's passing by the club. That a lot of those fans that saw them at Target Center probably didn't know that they played the club 8-9 times prior to that. Going back to the entry, so. That's when they started putting these stars on to let people know who played there, and here we are. There's 500 some stars now, and counting.
Yeah, I can't think of that place without that imagery on the wall, and I love just scoping the names, from Joe Cocker all the way up to Lizzo, on that list. It's just such a cool rundown of the various acts that have played there and the role they've played, and kind of nurturing careers or kind of a mid-career Tina Turner, giving her some crucial, in the early 80s, in the post-Ike era, just kind of
Yeah.
fascinating
Yeah,
stuff.
I was thinking about those Tina Turner shows, watching that new documentary on her, which is just fantastic. And yeah, they show scenes of her from playing. And I wish there was footage of. There might be actually footage of her playing First Avenue in that era. But yeah, I mean, it was kind of, she was reinventing her, not reinventing herself, but reigniting her career in these not so big of venues, and no, those are supposed to be great shows too, and wish I'd seen those for sure.
I think one of the things that's most impressed me about First Avenue is like going to shows there in my teens, 20s, 30s, and 40s. I've seen some of the same employees there over that entire time, and kind of leading right into one of my all-time favorite characters of First Avenue, Mr. Conrad Sverkeson. I just love listening to bands, the way you've kind of covered in some of your writing, the way bands really appreciate the role he plays. But I would love to just hear a little bit more about the role that staff plays in making it such a attractive venue for bands to play. Is it just how they're treated? It can't just be the acoustics. Love if you could speak to a little bit of that.
Yeah, no, I made a point of spotlighting the staff there, and these people who invested blood, sweat, and tears in keeping that place open. Not usually not for much in the way of a paycheck. There's so many of them. A lot of people think Conrad's the longest tenured employee, but he's not by a long shot. The record holder right now is Roy Freedom, who was Roy was a DJ there, and he does like he was the guy who did the calendars and would make up the calendars all those years, the printed calendars, and he's still involved in that end in calendars. There's a bartender who you'll often see up in the upstairs bar, the back upstairs bar, Peter Rasmussen. He's a few years behind him, and so many others. Oscar, who works security there, Damon, who works security there, and yeah, people love that club just because it's been around so long and because it sounds great. But there's, when it comes down to it, and actually, I think there's a great quote by Conrad. I think it's by Conrad in the book of, the touring's hard. Oh no, I know it's Mark Perlman of the Jayhawks talking about Conrad. He says, touring's really, really hard. It's grueling. It's physically grueling. It's mentally grueling. You want to feel, to go into a place like First Avenue and feel welcomed and feel kind of just the old comfort value of it is really something that bands take to. And obviously the staff treating bands well is a big part of that. I mean, at the Star Tribune, every interview I do with an out-of-town musician, I mean, obviously not everyone, but all of them that have played there, half the time I don't even bring up the club, and they do, and they can't wait to talk about it or talk about the people there, or they usually have some memory from playing there. Some of them printable and some not printable, but that's on them. Not the club. That's their shenanigans, not the club.
Totally remember I was at that Death Cab for Cutie show at Northrop, where he asked, like, "Where's Conrad?" When Ben Gibbard looked out into the
That's right
space and was like, "Where is he?" And
yeah.
From someone who used to be terrified of that guy because he would yank your friends down when they were. I was never a body pass kind of guy, being a big guy, but I remember he would yank him down and throw him out. And then I grew to respect that role he played so much over the years, and just kind of watching. You can just tell he just was so concerned about making sure the band wouldn't be interfered with while they're playing. And, just, you could really see he cared about the artists that were on stage. He cares about the artists. No need to refer to him in the past tense.
Yeah. And that whole, I mean, Conrad and the whole staff became pivotal when they started expanding to other venues, namely the Palace Theater, which when the venues are open, hopefully soon, knock on wood, Conrad more often would be you'd see working at the Palace Theater these days, and the bands that are playing the Palace Theater are the bands that played First Avenue 5 to 20 years ago. They're graduating up to the bigger venue, and that's a big reason why they took over the Palace. And the bands pull up there, they know they're at a First Avenue run venue. So it's a big part of it.
Does feel pretty seamless there. It feels like you're getting kind of the same treatment, the same experience from top to bottom, whether you're buying a beer at the bar or handing a code over, getting your ID checked. So
yeah,
definitely like that stuff. Can't really talk about First Avenue, especially over the last, I'd say 10 or 15 years, without kind of talking about the Frank family. Would love to hear the role kind of Mr. Frank. Is it Barney? I can't remember his first name all of a sudden.
But Byron
Frank and his daughter Dana. But I would love if you could talk a little bit about them.
Yeah. No, I mean, Dana Frank is, well, Byron's the reason that the club survived bankruptcy in 2004. And Dana is the reason it's become so successful and expanded so greatly over the past decade. Byron was, and Byron is Dana's dad. Byron was the accountant. He was a childhood friend of Alan Fingerhut. Alan Fingerhut was the original owner. Alan Fingerhut was from the Fingerhut Corporation, so he came from a rich family, and then good for us because some of that money went into opening the club and keeping it open. So Byron was involved, just kind of on the business end at the club from the beginning. In the year 2000, this leads up to the bankruptcy in 2004. Byron, they bought the building. The building up until that point had been owned by the Mann family that owns the Mann Theaters, including at the time the Palace Theater around the corner, which was shuttered then. I don't know if they still they had some kind of ownership of the theaters there. In 2000, they offered to sell it, and Byron basically put together the money to buy the place. Okay, so that happened, and then flash forward to 2004, Byron and Alan are going at it legally. Childhood friends who were in business together, who it eventually it came sputtering down, and this wasn't. It was kind of more by Alan Fingerhut was involved in art galleries. He had art galleries and art publishing businesses. And so it was kind of more around that, but that spilled over into First Avenue. Byron owning the building, having primary ownership of the building, they had actually cut in Steve Mcclellan and Jack Myers, because those guys who really kept the place running all those years, so rightfully so. So with them involved, that gave Byron ownership of the building, which led up to the dispute, which led up to the bankruptcy, which led up to Byron taking over at the end of 2004 after the club had been closed, and many of us panicked as it was scary. I covered that for the Strip, and I was really, really worried that the club that was it. But Byron took over. Byron at that point was trying to be retired, so obviously he didn't want to run a rock club. And he said he has two daughters, and he said to them, one of you needs to take this over, or we got to bring in someone else. And that someone else could have included Live Nation. So Dana Frank, who was living in LA at the time, working in the TV industry, she signed on, and I don't, in the year 2021, I don't think she quite fathomed what she was signing up for, but she signed on, and she was all in, and she became the really led the place, starting with the opening of the Depot Tavern, which became a good revenue source for the club, because all these, you'd go to a show, people would meet up in other bars to drink beforehand or to eat beforehand. Well, the Depot Tavern opened right next door, and now people can drink and eat right there at First Avenue. I miss the Depot. I think they actually are going to be reopening the Depot Tavern here in a
Great news.
week or two. I understand it might even actually be open now. I'm not sure, but it's reopening soon. Which it's a great, when the Twins games. Well, I guess the Twins games are open too, but when we all start going back to the Twins games, we can. If we can't go to the rock shows, we can at least stop at the Depot Tavern before the Twins games. But yeah, then under Dana Frank, the club expanded to starting with the Turf Club. They bought up the Turf Club, which Turf Club, by the way, they're rebuilding that right now, basically rebuilding it as is. That was damaged in the riots at the end of May or beginning of June. Someone broke in, or some people broke in, tried starting a fire in there, and that set off the sprinklers, which flooded the place. And Dana didn't wallow in it, and said, don't worry about us, worry about George Floyd. I thought that was a pretty poignant moment in the club's history. And then not too long before the pandemic, they had bought up the Fine Line, took over the Fine Line, and then the Fitzgerald Theater. Which is one reason. I don't know the financial situation there. It's personal business, it's a family-owned business, it's a private business. But you just have to assume, all this money that they were making was going into all these expanding and buying up the Fitzgerald and everything. So that's why it's, it is a very serious thing that they have been shuttered, and the place is going to it needs support now. It's going to need support when it reopens too, because it's, they've been investing a lot in these venues and keeping them locally owned and locally run. And
in your reportage, did you cover much of her work with the Save Our Stages Act?
Yeah.
Do you know much about that? I think I'd love to have folks learn a little bit more about that. If you have any insight on it, it'd be great.
Yeah. No, it's really been, Dana has turned, was already kind of a local rock star for what all she'd done in her 10 plus years at the club. Well, the club shut down, and she and a couple other club owners started talking, and they formed this NIVA, National Independent Venues Association, which started that Save Our Stages initiative, and Dana became the president, and Dana became the kind of the poster child of that of that effort. She was in Rolling Stone, she was written up in Billboard, all kinds of press, with New York Times, all of that, as they were lobbying to Save Our Stages effort. And then also she enlisted, which part of that is not just Dana, it's First Avenue as that national reputation as an independent venue, one of the best, one of the longest running in the country, in danger from this pandemic. So, it wasn't just Dana, it was the club itself that became the important factor there. And then it also, not to get political, but Amy Klobuchar, teamed up with the First Avenue teamed up with her, and she became the co-author of the bill that eventually became the Save Our Stages Act, which is the money. My understanding is the applications got held up on that. There were $16 billion that these venues desperately need, and 2-3 weeks ago the process opened up to get these federal grants, and the website just crashed on impact, and a week plus later these venues are like, what's going on? I guess I think it was as of Monday, these applications are going through. how long the money is going to take to get there remains to be seen. So it's, you know, and I'm not just First Avenue, any of these venues. They have shows on the books. Buy up tickets, buy up merch, get these places over the hurdle to get past this pandemic. It's the lights at the end of the tunnel, but they still got a ways. The tunnel's still pretty long that they got to get out of. So,
Do you have a sense of first off, yeah, my colleague I think gave one of our favorite, my colleague gave me a great comment here. You can see it in the chat, but I totally support this, that one of the best parts of the Dana Frank era is the bathrooms are so much cleaner in all the facilities. I just thank you, Dana, for that, because that used to be a pretty harrowing journey going up to the men's room at First Avenue or what passes for a bathroom at the entry. So
yeah,
I appreciate that aspect of the leadership.
There's a funny quote from Bill DeVille, the great DJ at the Current, in the book of you could tell all the men who went to the show that night because they'd have the rust stains from the urinals on their jeans or whatever. So yeah, no, and actually I was just talking about this because it was the anniversary of Prince's, and they had that great dance party for families in the days after the week or so after his passing. I took my daughter, only one of my daughters. The other one was too cool to go with her dad there or something. My younger daughter was 5 at the time, and you know, sure enough, she had to use the bathroom, and it's just me. Her mom wasn't there, so I'm like, oh, you know, I got to take you into that horrible bathroom. But the sure enough, the bathroom was pristinely clean for her that day, and she was not scarred for life. She wants back to the place when she can.
Have you talked, has there been kind of discussion kind of in the, as clubs kind of come back to life, as First Avenue have kind of ever pondered just some of the assets they have in terms of archival recordings, or would they
Yeah,
ever?
I saw that question. I think that's what they were. I think, yeah, they're talking about recordings there. They don't have rights to any of that. That's our artists always have the rights to that stuff. They have a trove of video there. They used to have an in-house video system that was like a 3-camera setup. You know, it was pretty low-fi, but you know, not too low-fi. That turned in the great local filmmakers, Harder Fuller, Rick and Phil. They made that Heyday documentary. Just going through that footage and picking out some really fun stuff from mostly from the 80s. But yeah, so there's more to that. I don't know what I can only imagine what they couldn't get rights to. I mean, there's, you know, and obviously the most sought after thing there would be Prince video, which there is video of that fabled night Minnesota Dance Theater benefit, the August 1983 show where Purple Rain was debuted and recorded. They had a mobile recording, you know, real from the record plant, a real hi-fi recording truck that got the audio. We're not sure what there is for video, but we know. Well, actually, I have seen. I did get to see the lo-fi video from that night. I did get to see the entire show. Just chills watching it from start to finish. We don't know if there's better video of that, but that's you know, that's going to be huge when that gets out. When that, I mean, obviously the audio recording of that night's going to be huge, but the video too, and then every once in a while on YouTube or wherever the clip comes up. There's a great clip of the video from that night of Purple Rain being performed, and it's 11 minutes long. His performance of the song that night was 11 minutes long, whittled down to 8 for the record, whittled down to 4.5 for the radio. But I don't know. You could Google search it. Maybe it'll come up. But it's this great. It shows. It's just stunning to see him do this. This song you've heard so much, as you've heard it, to see him doing it live, and his interaction with Wendy. It was actually Wendy of the Revolution. It was her that was her first show with the band. So just a huge night all around. So that stuff will hopefully come out. First Avenue itself doesn't have rights to much of that stuff. They put out a great when was this? This was before, or no, it was right after the bankruptcy, I want to say, like around 04 or 05. They did put out a really great compilation album.
That is a great compilation album. Yeah, it was a fun one to give to people out of town for a few years as gifts.
Yeah, no, it made a great gift. I mean, it had live tracks from most of the big locals. Guided by Voices was on there. I remember. I can't remember who else, but that was they had to go act by act to get permission to release those songs. I mean, some of it was stuff the bands themselves had recorded. Like I know that I think there's a Suburbs track on there that the Suburbs had released a live album from there. There's there's a lot of live albums from there that Bob Mold's Sugar had. They had an expanded edition of the second Sugar album, File Under Easy Listening. The bonus CD was a live recording from First Avenue. So, but that's as I say, it's up to the bands themselves to release that stuff. Unfortunately.
Think of all the shows I read about in the book. That was just the one that I really wish I could have gone to that predates me would be the Flying Burrito Brothers opening up for Frank Zappa.
Yeah.
Maybe leaving after the Flying Burrito Brothers played. That's probably what I might have done too.
Yeah, no, I'm not a big Zappa fan myself, but just the thought of them splitting the bill together, these huge Rock and Roll Hall of Fame acts, splitting the bill. But the other interesting bonus to that is that Bob Dylan was actually at that show because he was kind of pals with some of the Burrito Brothers, or not pals. No, anybody's a pal with Bob Dylan, but yeah, I think he kind of came out to see them. And there's a story of someone who worked there went out into the garage. His car was parked in the garage. I forget who it was. I wish I could give him a shout out. Went out to his car in the garage, and Bob Dylan was sitting on the bumper, talking to probably the Burrito Brothers or whoever, and he had to kick Bob Dylan off his car bumper. So, yeah, no, that Depot era, that 1970 to 71, is just it was fascinating I mean, Iggy and the Stooges played in that era. I mean, talk about the birth of punk rock, or the place as a punk rock bar. It goes back to the beginning in that case, but also B.B. King, John Lee Hooker, Ike and Tina. I mean, and this is Minneapolis, 1970. Booking acts like that was pretty cutting edge. Just in racial terms, to have those acts playing downtown. There was, a lot of the local. This was in Andrea Swenson's great book. Talks about how a lot of the her books Got to Be Something Here, which is about the R&B and the black music scene leading up to Prince. They couldn't play downtown. They basically for racist policies in the city and the police and there was a few places they would play. So booking, when First Avenue started booking black acts there, it was a big thing. It shouldn't have been, but it was.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite people I love hearing kind of tell stories about First Avenue in the 80s would have to be Michael Bland, for Soul Asylum and New Power Generation, and so overqualified for almost any gig he does. But I just love it when he talks about going to that club and seeing Soul Asylum or Run Westy Run, and then, any of the other acts that would come through. It really, probably more utopian in my head than it really is, but it's just kind of cool to see it was a place where different parts of the city sort of gathered there in the early to late mid 80s.
Yeah, yeah. I actually just talked to Michael earlier today. For sad reasons, Billy Franzi, the guitarist from Mambo's Combo, has passed away. So just before we logged on here, we published that obit online of Billy. But yeah, Michael is a great example of the crossover between that kind of started there around the Prince era in the early 80s of rock and R&B and funk and coming together under one roof. And there's Andre Simone, who was Prince's early bassist, and it was his childhood friend. Prince moved in with his family for a bit when he was a kid. He has a great story in there about going to see the Replacements in the entry. Andre's Andre's very much a rocker, and he still is. Actually, he put out a great album a couple years ago called 1969. I mean, it rocks. But seeing the Replacements there, and he trying to get Prince into the Replacements, and he was singing them, "I need a goddamn job." Prince wasn't sold on him, in other words, but it's cool that he was still Prince was influenced by punk rock and by the rock acts that were playing there. There's a weird story of one of the acts Prince joined on stage there was Ja Wobble, who was the guitarist for Public Image Limited, Johnny Rotten's Public Image Limited. So he must have been a PIL fan, I think. So it's which was part of the attraction for Prince. He didn't want to just play. He wanted obviously he was a rocker and wanted to play to rock crowds as much as the North Side R&B crowds.
Could just sit at a piano and play a beautiful Joni Mitchell song in the next moment.
That's one of the things in that video from 1983. That was one of the moments in that video is him doing the KCU, the Joni Mitchell song. It's just goosebumps. Oh, amazing.
So cool. Let's see here. Would you ever? I guess we sort of talked about it, but I'm curious, a show that you weren't at that's in the book to a tin, which would it be?
Oh, well, opening night is, what a way to start. The Joe Cocker Mad Dog and Englishman tour, and there's 27 musicians on stage, a whole entourage with kids and a dog and and obviously the musicians that were on stage, not just Cocker, but Leon Russell was the band leader. Bobby Keys who was later the Stones saxophonist. He was in the band. Rita Coolidge was the backup singer. Who was it? The other one was it Lisa Fisher? One of the women in the 20 Feet from Stardom documentary was another backup singer. That being at that show, on one hand, you wonder if the people who were there would just, talk about it because it was the first night and a cool moment to be there. But when you see footage from that tour, or you hear that live record, it's just massive. And this was the First Avenue, it was the Depot then, was the smallest place on that tour. And that's how I talked to a woman who was a photographer on the tour. That's how she remembered it, because it was the smallest place on the tour. Joe Cocker was blowing up at that point. The Woodstock movie had just come out. He had a big role in the Woodstock movie, of course, and so that would have been something. I never got to see either the Replacements or Husker Du there. So seeing either any of them, that would obviously have been huge. My friend Mark and I, he and I did go there as teens. Our first show there was together. we were supposed to go to what wound up being the last Husker Du shows, and they had one all ages night, and we were kids. And, you know, I think one of us maybe had to work our stupid dishwasher job or whatever we had at that point. So we didn't go. And then they broke up, you know, but we figured, well, we can see them some other time. So any of them would be great. Yeah, I mean, any of those Depot shows, I mean, seeing Iggy and the Stooges there in 71.
Can't even wrap my head around.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Or Iggy.
Yeah. But also I can Tina or Tina solo, that would have been incredible too.
We are approaching 7:30. I just want to say thank you so much for taking out and talking about your incredible book, folks. Go to the Minnesota Historical Society, see it not in reverse, and find the book next time you're at the museum or go online. It's such an incredible history, just really well researched. I could just get lost in the index for this book, kind of tracing names, be it people like P.D. Larson, Conrad, Nate Kranz, just, you know, Bob, Slim Dunlap's wife. I really enjoyed reading about her. So I just want to say
Chrissy was hugely involved behind the scenes there and really added to the cool of that place in the 80s. Chrissy Dunlap. So yeah, I mean, God, I miss the place. You know, it's their shows. It looks like September. They got some really good shows in September. Dinosaur Jr., Waxahachie. I can't wait to see both of them.
Got tickets for the Dinosaur Jr. show, so I'm gonna lose what's left of my hearing from the Dinosaur Jr. My Bloody Valentine show in 1992. That really did a number on my.
Yeah, that's another. I lived in Austin, Texas at the time, so I saw that show in Austin, Texas. But that's another one that would have been great to see at First Avenue. Yeah, no, people. That's the one that people would say was their loudest show there. Often cited as the loudest show there. Yeah, no, just to be back there and feeling, you know, that's almost the sensation you miss the most. I'd seeing live music is just that in your bones, you know. So I can't wait.
Well, thank you so much for taking your time tonight. I, like you, love live music. It's sustained me now for 30 years. Funny thing for me, I was at that Cars Wang Chung show that they quickly got out of to go see Prince play at First Avenue. That was probably like the first concert I went to. Sorry for folks who hear me spiel, but
no, I'd brag about
nuggets like that.
I'd brag about that too. That's the one that if I recall that Rick Ocasek showed up, and Tommy Stinson, who was maybe 16, 17 at the time, wise ass kid. After Prince did something especially awesome, Tommy Stinson says to Rick Ocasek, "Let's see you do that, big shot," or something like that. Which I'm sure Rick Ocasek was probably like, "Yeah, no, I can't do that." Yeah, no, that's a cool show. I wish I'd been at that. That's one I'd put on the list too.
Well, I really look forward to continuing to read your writing in the Star Tribune, especially as we ramp up for the return to live music.
Yeah.
I just want to say thanks again for tonight.
Yeah,
thanks
thank
for
you, Jeff.
and celebrating it.
Thanks to the library for supporting it and promoting all that Prince stuff out there in Carver County and to the Legacy Amendment too. That's a big thing in music too. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Have a great night.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
And we'll see you soon.
Yeah.